In honor of Pride Month, our first reading will be a video of Andrea Gibson, who, if you don't already know her, I highly recommend. She's going to be reading her poem called First Love. Andrea is an amazing writer and influencer who talks eloquently and honestly about really hard things. She recently shared news that her ovarian cancer is back, and as she blesses us with her moving words in this video, I ask that you bless her with your ongoing prayers, that she continues to live out the rest of her life to its highest and most beautiful potential. I hope you'll enjoy her spoken word poetry. I think that ended up being a better experience in the sanctuary than people on Zoom. Sorry for that technical issue, but what I'll recommend is that you go onto YouTube so that you can hear the first part. It's called First Love by Andrea Gibson, and I'm glad.
I don't think I ever really kissed any boys. I think my tongue had just been touching it.
Thank you, Andrea Gibson, and hopefully, if you didn't hear it all, you'll be able to go and listen. According to Christian belief, there are two stories of how God created the universe, which are found in the books of Genesis. Some Christians regard Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 as two totally separate myths that have a shared meaning. Our second reading comes from the first of the creation stories, Genesis 1, and we'll go all the way through to chapter 2, verse 4a. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. By the way, I'm reading from the Inclusive Bible. But the earth became chaos, and emptiness and darkness came over the face of the deep. Yet the Spirit of God was brooding over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Light be," and light was. God saw the light was good, and God separated light from darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness night. Evening came, and morning followed, the first day. Then God said, "Now make an expanse between the waters, separate water from water." So it was. God made the expanse and separated the water above the expanse from the water below it. God called the expanse sky. Evening came and morning followed the second day. Then God said, "Waters under the sky be gathered into one place, dry ground appear." So it was. God called the dry ground earth, and the gathering of the waters sea, and God saw that this was good. Then God said, "Earth, produce vegetation, plants that scatter their own seed, and every kind of fruit tree that bears fruit with its own seed in it." So it was. The earth brought forth every kind of plant that bears seed, and every kind of fruit on the earth that bears fruit with its seed in it. And God saw that this was good. Evening came and morning followed the third day. Then God said, "Now let there be lights in the expanse of the sky. Separate day from night. Let them mark the signs and seasons, days and years, and serve as luminaries in the sky, shedding light on the earth." So it was. God made the two great lights, the greater one to illuminate the day, and a lesser one to illuminate the night. Then God made the stars as well, placing them in the expanse of the sky to shed light on the earth, to govern both day and night, and separate light from darkness. And God saw that this was good. Evening came and morning followed the fourth day. God then said, "Waters swarm with an abundance of living beings. Birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the sky." And so it was. God created great sea monsters and all sorts of swimming creatures with which the waters are filled, and all kinds of birds. God saw this was good and blessed them, saying, "Bear fruit, increase your numbers, and fill the waters of the seas. Birds abound on the earth." Evening came and morning followed the fifth day. Then God said, Earth, bring forth all kinds of living soul, cattle, things that crawl, wild animals of all kind. So it was. God made all things of wild animal and cattle and everything that crawls on the ground, and God saw that this was good. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, to be like us. Let them be stewards of the fish in the sea, the birds of the air, the cattle, the wild animals, and everything that crawls on the ground." Humankind was created as God's reflection. In the divine image of God created them. Female and male, God made them. God blessed them and said, "Bear fruit, increase your numbers and fill the earth, and be responsible for it. Watch over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and the living things on the earth." God then told them, "Look, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the earth and every tree whose fruit carries its seed inside itself. They will be your food, and to all the animals of the earth and the birds of the air and things that crawl on the ground, everything that has a living soul in it, I give all the green plants for food." So it was. God looked at all of this creation and proclaimed that this was good, very good. Evening came and morning followed the sixth day. Then the heavens and the earth and all their array were completed. On the seventh day, God had finished all the work of creation, and so on the seventh day, God rested. God blessed the seventh day and called it sacred, because on it God rested from all the work of creation. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. It's a tale as old as time. Our origin story in the book of Genesis is a beautiful work of poetry. It is not history, nor is it science. I can't talk about the poetry of creation without giving a shout out to my favorite seminary professor, Dr. Bob Robinson, who will be here with us in a few weeks for our annual congregation meeting. Much of what I'm going to share about Genesis is ripped straight from my class notes, from his prolific lectures. He brilliantly made us take notes in the margins of our Bibles because he knew how easy it would be for us to throw away a notebook and how unlikely it would be for us to throw away our Bible. One of the ways that we know that Genesis is poetry is the alliteration we find in the original Hebrew language. One of the characteristics of poetry, of course, is that it helps us to evoke images. And the first image we get is that of the Spirit of God hovering gently over the face of the waters, like a mother bird over her nest. Even the phrase "in the beginning" evokes an image of a blank slate, which is a radical image because everything is missing. It is absent of shape and time, location and color. The Bible starts off by stripping away everything familiar. Then it fills it with God-created action verbs. The earth was without form and void, or in Hebrew, the earth was tohu vavohu. The sound of the words matters more than their meaning. And darkness was over the face of the deep. A deep is water without a bottom. The text is creating an image intended to crawl up your spine, the terrifying starting point before God works their magic. God is comfortable with the world's chaos and in control of it. And then there's a shift starting in verse 3, which states, "And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." The language shifts to total economy of action until we get to complete order. God separated, named, and ordered things. God calls the light day and the darkness night. The text seems to want you to feel the order being established and to be optimistic about what's coming next. And as the narrative unfolds, we move from simple to sophisticated. And then we get to the most remarkable part, the part we have the most trouble believing. when humankind is made in God's own image, and male and female are made simultaneously and without distinction, presented as equal, and the dignity assigned to the creation of humans is extremely high. It's clear from this account that God holds us in very high esteem. The quoted scripture reads, "And God saw everything that was made, and behold, it was very good." Our origin story is one of original blessing. But the PR campaign for this part of the story has been atrocious, a complete failure. It's been erased and replaced by the campaign for original sin, which has had the best spin doctors ever leading its branding campaign. The executive team was, and maybe still is, made up of white privileged men who told the story in a way that would best control our behavior. So the gospel becomes a story of separation from God because of our supposed sin nature, and Jesus becomes a get out of hell free card. You see, if you tell someone a story about their sin nature, they are quick to believe you because they live human lives and they find themselves in situations where he or she are forced to make impossible choices. And the decisions they make feel so very far from the choice they think one who was made in the image of God would make. Take me the other day. Let me set the stage. We agreed to dog sit for my parents, 2 dogs, for 2 whole weeks while they vacationed. My mom is on the screen, and I'm sure she's going to get a kick out of this story. Even though we have a puppy of our own, we thought we can do it. It's going to be okay. To say things that were not going well would be an understatement. Dan, can you pull up the photo of the dogs in question? You'll need a visual for this story. On the left, we have Grayson. During his 2-week stay, I nicknamed him Grumpy. He's older and wants everyone to leave him alone, especially puppies. The big lug in the middle is Griffin Oliver. He's 8 months old, and I nicknamed him Excited. The one on the right is Lily. Her nickname is Needy. She wants her humans to rub her all day long and to let her French kiss whenever she feels like it. You know what's not a good combination? Grumpy, excited, and needy. Excited wants to get Grumpy and Needy to chase him every minute of the day, and they are simply not having it, and they're determined to show who is boss, the veterans. This resulted in constant high-speed chases with violent barking warnings. You can stop screen sharing now, even though the story's not over. So things were a hot mess at my house, and my nerves were pretty shot, and it takes a lot for me to be in this state. On the day before they're finally going to go home, I make the bold and poor choice to take all 3 of them on a walk on my own. I don't know what I was thinking. Of course, as soon as we started walking, one of them does their business on the sidewalk, and now, in addition to managing all 3 leashes, I have to bend down to retrieve the poop in those little bags. And soon after I take care of that situation, I see some rapid movement in my peripheral vision across the street. There's a little brown dog that looks like a Chihuahua maybe, and it's running really fast in the opposite direction, and it does not appear to be attached to a leash or a human. At this moment, I had an important decision to make on behalf of that little dog, who had probably escaped from a nearby yard. I could try to chase the dog with the other 3 dogs in tow and see if I could grab him before he was hit by a car. Or I considered trying to rush home and secure my dogs to free up my hands and then go back to find the stray dog. As your pastor and as someone made in God's divine image, I'm sure you hope that I did one of those two things, but I did not. What I ultimately chose to do was to say a little prayer for that dog, that he or she would encounter someone far more compassionate and available than me. And I continued my walk with my trio of dogs. I've been riddled with guilt ever since. I kept thinking, a better person than me would have helped that dog. I also kept thinking about the parable in the book of Matthew that was surely written just to indict me in this particular situation. Which one of you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one that is lost? This is the kind of human experience that make us think, surely I wasn't made in the image of God. There's nothing divine about turning your back on a creature in need, one who God assigned me to steward according to the creation story. But the good news is that the origin story of our divinity is not conditioned on our behavior. Thanks be to God, we were made in God's image, and God blessed us and declared us very good, even when we do the wrong thing. At this point, if you'll allow it, I want to pivot from puppies and the poetry of Genesis to the world of science and healthcare. To help us grasp this idea of being made in God's image, I want to use an analogy based on some fascinating work being done by MIT engineers for patients with heart disease. Let's learn more in a short video. So, a replica is an exact copy or model of something. These heart replicas are customized to each patient because no two hearts are alike. Size and shape vary, especially in people living with heart disease. God created humankind in God's own image. Like MIT engineers designed these robotic hearts in the image of the patient's own heart. They were created in form and function to mimic the blood pumping ability of the organ found in human bodies that keep us alive. This is true even if the device malfunctions in some way. God blessed us and called us very good. What if we are the same shape as God, created to mimic the form and function of divinity, or at least try to? Can we even fathom what it means to be made in the image of God? Isaiah 43:1 puts it this way: "But thus says God, God who created you, God who formed you, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by my name. You are mine." Even if you make a choice akin to not rescuing a chihuahua in need, even when religion tries to make you hate yourself by emphasizing your supposed sin nature and telling you the lie that you are separated from your divine creator, God says, do not fear. I have called you by my name. You are mine. I don't know what you have done, what action or inaction makes you feel riddled with guilt, separated from God, or irredeemable. But if you conjure it up, that view of yourself, or how you think other people view you, Daniel Schroyer, in her book, Original Blessing, the name of the book is Original Blessing, Putting Sin in Its Rightful Place. She says, we can either build our self-worth on the shifting sand of human opinion, including our own, or we can build it on the rock of God's steadfast commitment to us. There is no need for striving for something that has been right here with us all along. Instead, we can acknowledge that we can work with God in our goodness, recalling that the God who created you, the God who formed you, has a message for you. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by my name. You are mine. This is surely the good news of God. Amen.